Hello everybody, today we are going to talk about loops. Loop is something that will let us repeat a single instruction, block of instruction, as many times as we want to. Okay, let's start from creating a multi-line command and let's see how does for loop work. For parentheses, and we can place a few things in that parentheses, like initialization, condition, increment decrement statement, and after it we can place the instruction to repeat. And of course we can place more than one instruction to repeat, but we have to use then the curly brackets, right? So we can group them. So it's the same like when we used the conditional statements, for example, if. Okay, let's go back to the easier version of that, and please remember about the semicolons here. Let's start from initialization. This place is this is a place where we can fast define a temporary variable and assign a value to it. So let's create a loop for and let's define a variable called, for example, I, and let's assign a value to it, for example, 0. And then of course I have to remember about the semicolon here. I can create here more than one variable, so I will use comma here, and for example g equals 5, but I don't need right now two variables, so let's just delete this. I'm just telling you about that so you will know that. Okay, so this is that initialization, and remember, this is the first thing that will be executed when our PC meets loop. Okay, so this is the first thing, and that thing won't be repeated again. So he will define, our PC will define that variable, and that's all. And after it, our PC will check condition, so that place here, right? And condition is working like in all other conditional statements, so condition is true when it is not equal to 0. Okay, so for example, I is lower than 5. If that condition here, let's add semicolon, if that condition here is not met, instruction to repeat, so that guy here, so for example that guy here, won't be executed at all. If condition is met, instruction to repeat, so that guy here, will be executed one time. Okay, so right now is 0 lower than 5, that's true, so that guy will be executed at least once. And after that, execution of that instruction here, or of course block of instruction, because we can use the block of instructions, the field increment decrement will be executed. So this is the place where we can, for example, increment that guy here, or decrement, so do something like that. So we can lower it by 1 or increase by 1. Okay, right now we should increase that guy, so finally someday that condition will be met. So this field is the most time used to increase variables that are in initialization field, and variables from initialization field, so from here, are used the most time in condition field. So it means that expression from condition will finally change. Okay, so right now that thing should be run 5 times. Let's add the end line here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And right, let's check how does it work exactly. So I'm right now the PC. Wow, here is the loop. I have to define the integer, and so I have to allocate the memory for it and assign a value to that place, and that value must be 0. Okay, after it I'm checking if that condition is true. Is 0 lower than 3? Yes. Okay, so I will send this thing to the output. Well, let's change it to, for example, I right now. So I will send to the output 0. After it, I will increase that I. So right now I is 1. And then again I will check the condition. Is 1 lower than 3? Yes. So I will execute that thing here again, and I will send to the output 1. Okay, so again I will execute that guy here, and I is right now equal to 2. Is 2 lower than 3? Yes, so I will send to the output 2. Cool. So I will have 0, 1 and 2, and now again I will execute that guy here, increase it by 1, and I is right now equal to 3. Is 3 lower than 3? No, because 3 is not lower than 3, the condition is not met, and because of that, that instruction won't be executed at all. So if I were PC, I would just move to another instruction. So for example, to that guy here that is singing, right? And let's check it out. As you can see, we have 0, 1, 2 and Lala. So I wasn't lying to. And now you might be like, hey, where can I use it? It's a good idea to use something like that to assign values of arrays. So how to do that? Let's create, for example, an array that size is 4, and I want to assign values to that array, to all elements of this array, right? And how to do that? Let's create a loop, define integer number, and if I is lower than 4, then I plus plus. And now we can, for example, assign I here, or just 0, or maybe 5, or maybe 10, well, anything, right? Let's do something like that, for example. This thing means what? That if I were the PC, I would define that variable, and then I would check if 0 is lower than 4. Yes, so I would assign to array index of index 0, so to the first element 0, and I will increase, check, and then I will assign to the second element of array 1, and repeat until that guy here is true. So when the I is 4, that condition is not met, because 4 is not lower than 4. And right now we can also, for example, send this guy to the output values of the arrays. Let's check if it's working, right? That guy here will be commented. Let's see. And as you can see, we have 0, 1, 2 and 3. So everything is working fine. But look, we can do, for example, like that. So I can assign 100 values almost instantly. Look. Wow. And this was really fast. Okay. We can, of course, also group that thing with the curly brackets. Let's do it that way right now. So I'm assigning value to the array, and after it I am sending to the output instantly. What would happen if I did something like that? As you can see, all the values in that arrays are random, right? We don't know exactly what is in memory. because we assigned after outputting, not before. Okay, so when I do something like that, everything works fine. Now I'd like to tell you about the infinite loop, which means that this loop will never end. I don't need to put anything in the fields here. Initialization, condition, increment, decrement station, I don't need to. When I don't do that, our loop will be infinite. So, for example, la la la, and let's see what's going on. Our program is going to execute forever. I will use now the Ctrl+C to stop it. Okay. And now, when it's good to use? It's good to use when we know something what is called break statements, but we'll talk about it later. I just wanted you to know that there is something like infinite loops, and there is a problem with them, because you can make sometimes by mistake infinite loop, and you can do that way. For example, integer I equals 5, and then if I is lower than 5, then I plus plus. But what if I did something like that? So I'm not giving that guy here, that field here. I'm not using it. Of course, this is infinite loop, because that statement here is always true again. Is 0 lower than 5? Yes, it will be lower than 5 always. So that's the same like I would do something like that. Right? And it's always true. So you must be careful to not to make something like that, like condition that is always true. Okay? So that's all in this lesson. Thank you very much.